While reviewing dark and violent manga with that special flavor of added philosophy and deeper looks into the nature of mankind, one I knew I had to get to, as a Berserk fan and just as a manga fan in general, was one of the earliest visions of the genre created by Go Nagai, and that was none other than Devilman. The knowledge I had about Devilman before this was mostly short-lived. I had seen the OVAs, well, at least the first one, I'm pretty sure.
Fuck you!
All the way back when I was maybe 12 years old. It's a good age for a fresh introduction into a murderous rave with big anime titties that turn into flesh-eating demon mouths.
What the fuck?
Yeah, that was awesome. But other than that, I had an awareness of the series, and I knew the general concept of it, but I hadn't looked into it enough to understand just why it was so influential for its time and even now, and looked upon as one of the greatest manga of all time. Devilman began in 1972, and is a relatively short manga series compared to most of the big ones with the long-lasting reputations like Devilman has. But hey, that made it easier for me to get through quickly, so I'm thankful for that. And quickly for me was still about a month and a half. But initially on its surface, Devilman seems like it's filled with explicit blood and gore and nudity just for the sake of being an edgy manga. And hey, isn't that what they say about everything? Truth be told, the gore and brutality in the manga by today's standards might not seem that bad, but there were still some moments that truly caught me off guard and viscerally shocked me. Many of which involving children, so that makes it even more uncomfortable than it would be regularly. And also I think when looking at a manga like this, you need to put yourself as much as you can into the headspace of the time when it was released. Imagine seeing some of these images back in 1972. I can't imagine how insane and shocking this must have been. It's like I tell people when they watch horror movies especially. For example, with the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's also a movie from the 70s, by the way. Watched today, the impact might not seem that bad because we are very desensitized by seeing much more brutal displays of violence in media, but imagine the context when you didn't have all of that, and this was one of your first exposures to that level of the macabre and horror. And I think the same thing rings true when you think about a series like Devilman. Kind of put yourself as much as you can into that headspace, and as shocking as it is already, imagine that kind of added push of shock that would have happened, 40 years ago. Speaking of, Devilman is a strange story to place its genre. It has aspects of horror, psychological terror, existentialism, action, comedy, and even taken on the basis of the very idea of Devilman, it's kind of a superhero story.
I've done it! I'm Devilman!
I think this is just one of those times where a work stands out so much that it can't be classified into any one type of genre. Devilman is just Devilman. So I'm not going to spoil the story here minus volume 1 just to give you the gist of what it's about. But if you don't want to know anything at all about Devilman and you just want to check it out on your own, then go ahead and check it out now and come back to the video afterwards. So Devilman takes place in the 80s, funny enough, and begins with showing us what happened millions of years ago before humans. There was a battle between angels and demons. Demons wound up being frozen beneath the earth, but are unleashed in modern times. Demons in this world also have the unique ability to merge and assimilate with a host. So a demon can attach itself to an animal like a snake and become a big demon snake. It's simple, it's straightforward. But whichever one of the two has the strongest will becomes the dominant personality from the merger. And this leads into the formation of our main character. So a character named Rio is introduced, whose father was researching all of this, and he believes the key to saving humanity from the inevitable demon uprising is to find someone to merge with a demon and overcome their evil nature to control the power of a demon to fight for humanity. Well, enter our main character Akira, who just so happens to be the world's biggest pansy. He's easily intimidated, he runs away from fights, his girlfriend doesn't respect him, you get the idea. And because he has such a pure heart though, he was able to contain the demon power, essentially making him a demon with a human heart, effectively making him Devilman. It might seem like a complicated origin story, but it really flows rather well and is told at a good pace, and it's actually a lot of fun to read. For a while, my favorite portion of the series was the Devilman origin, not to mention that rave scene. So what really makes Devilman so special? After the origin story, Akira begins to embrace his more assertive, darker side. It's a glimmering idea that one needs to find the balance within themselves between their light side and their dark side. We can't be chaotic and demonic all the time, but we also have rage and heated emotions for a reason, and they're there to be used at appropriate times. As well, we can't be so nice that we allow people to walk all over us, and for the people that we care about to get hurt. So balance is definitely a theme, but it's not the theme of Devilman. It may have only been a side effect or a happy accident, given that that's the kind of main character that we got to begin with, and as it evolves, we see him balance those kind of two sides of himself. But the true strength of Devilman comes with its latter half and its finale. See, it was strange reading this because after the origin, we get multiple chapters of Devilman just fighting different demons. It's like a Demon of the Week sort of format. And each one is fun and inventive, and I do like the creature designs for most of them as well. Even if one of them is just a giant turtle, but he has a really cool ability to trap the souls of his victims in a shell, which added a more sadistic side to him, and it was a good moment of tension on whether or not Devilman would be willing to kill him and, have to kill all of his souls as well. But after a bit of that for a few chapters, the series takes a drastic shift into literal apocalyptic events and the threat of demons running rampant on the entire world. It felt like the entire middle portion of the series went missing somehow. The second act, if you will. We had the setup, story begins, and then bam, time to wrap up for the finale. Some have told me that this is due to Go Nagai being rushed, but whatever the case, it was my only true gripe with the story, and all in all, it's not a very big one. From there, the story shifts into a truly dark place. Yes, it was dark before with the gore and the demons, but where it goes for the second half of the series is the kind of dark that reflects our real world, both in the time it was released and kind of still reigns true today. The world is plunged into war, and the guy shows you the horrors of war and forces us into a world where mankind is on the brink of extinction, and instead of coming together or thinking a way out, people by and large become worse than the demons that they're fighting against. Paranoia and witch hunting are all they can do to desperately try to figure out who is a demon and who isn't. And if you are accused of being one, you and everybody you know and love are subject to the outcome of angry mobs breaking down your door and wanting to tear you apart before you have the chance to explain yourself or even tell them that you're not a demon. Fear is something we all have, and it becomes almost unstoppable when there is the threat of alienation. We don't want to be kicked out of the group or tribe that we associate ourselves with, so in order to keep looking like a good person in the eyes of your peers, you have to agree with all of them on who the bad people are. It's like burnings at the stake. Go ahead and throw the torch. Oh, you don't want to? Does that mean that you're a sympathizer? Or does that mean you're one of them? Instantly, that fear and paranoia overflows, and you find yourself murdering even children to not look like a demon yourself. And it goes even further with the advent of nuclear weapons. Obviously, any story to come out of Japan involving nuclear weapons holds more weight as they were directly affected by it as a culture. And this was the 70s, so World War II wasn't actually that long ago when this came out. The idea that people would fear the unknown and just the potential of being harmed so greatly that they would be willing to kill millions just to prevent it. People justify until the evil is perceived as good. And this is something unique to humanity, as the demons indulge in blood, sex, and violence and have no image to uphold. Humans, on the other hand, use evil methods, but pretend it's for the greater good. If that weren't enough, Devilman goes further in showing the absolute brutality of the human race in several other ways. One is the capture and enslavement of demons, and the bizarre, twisted experiments that they would perform on them. Devilman busting into a facility to see the dangling bodies of demons at the hand of human beings, the race that he had been fighting for, and the shock of him realizing just how barbaric the humans are as well. And it certainly reminded me of the Chapter Black arc of Yu Yu Hakusho and the origin story of Sensui. As well, a heartbreaking and horrifying massacre that happens just before the finale of the series that pulls our main character into a deep, somber depression, wondering why he is even fighting, and continuing to fight because, well, what else is there to do? You have the breakdown of the superhero-esque character that simply is going through the motions because he doesn't know what else to do with himself. The finale of Devilman, which I won't spoil here, is not an uplifting one. Once the story begins its downward slope into the brutal realities of the human race and the nature of fear and war, it remains locked there until the bitter end. Other things I want to mention real quick. One is the character of Rio. This guy is endlessly entertaining to read, and his introduction and snarky badassness constantly has me amused at all of the actions that he takes in the series. Miki might just be the best loyal GF of all time, and the bullies were a welcome surprise in how they were later integrated into the story. And when you finish the manga, go back and read the first chapter, chapter 1 again, because you will get a deeper appreciation for the entire series, I'm sure of it. Like I said, my only gripe really is the abrupt shift into the final act. Some people may also say the artwork and dialogue. What I'll say about the artwork is, from time to time it does look pretty dated, but when it was released it fit in perfectly. It's only when comparing it to everything that we have today does it look dated. And trust me, I understand being put off by artwork, but the art also changes a lot throughout the story. Sometimes it's super detailed, sometimes the scratchy line art is very similar to how Berserk would end up being, sometimes it's full of scope and beauty. I think it has a lot of variety. As for the dialogue, well, depending on the translation you find, yeah, some things can feel a little silly or maybe too on the nose, but those are all minor gripes in my opinion and shouldn't turn you off of the entire story as a whole. In conclusion, I am very happy that I decided to go back and read this classic manga, and it's certainly classic for a reason. With its mystical opening, its engaging characters, themes of the darker side of humanity, crazy action, horror, and gore, and also using Satan in an extremely creative way that I absolutely loved. I highly implore you to take a trip down manga memory lane and check out the original Devilman. Other than that, I just want to thank you guys very much for watching this video. I do really appreciate it so much, all of your support and continued support throughout the length of time this channel has been around. I don't take it for granted, and I really, really do thank each and every one of you guys. Please like this video if you want to. Comment down below your thoughts on Devilman. Share it with other Devilman fans or people that might want to get into the manga. Also, a thank you and a special shout out to DrxQuinnx, who created the thumbnail for this video. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. He also makes music, so you can check that out and pick it up in any of the major streaming services that are out there. Pretty cool stuff, so go ahead and check it out. Link will be in the description below. Discord, Patreon links are in the description below. Other than that, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you next time.
Can't leave me, not now. Why?